What is the best temperature to paint in exterior? And the first thing you want to do is take a look at the label. It has that information on it typically. More low-end temperature range information is given. If there's upper end, it's usually, they'll mention a surface temperature, not to exceed a certain amount. Lots of times it's 90 degrees. Most paints allow application down to 40 degrees. That's a typical number that you see a lot on the label. 40 degrees at the bottom. There are low temp paints which allow you to apply down to 35 degrees. So this particular product is a low temp product, so it allows for application down to 35 degrees. But ideally you'd be at 45 degrees or more to apply this paint, and the dry times and the recoat times are affected by the temperature. So there's two different recoat times, and it varies widely. So the thing you want to think about is what temperature you're going to be applying it in, what's your dry and recoat time, and is the temperature going to drop below that low range, especially if it drops below freezing before it has enough time to dry and cure. But again, you have to make sure you give it ample dry time before it drops below that, because you don't want it to freeze before it has time to cure. So we've talked about the low temperature considerations. You also need to think about how hot the surface temperature is, not the air temperature. It's what you're putting the paint on, how hot is that? And that's what's really important. So the factors there are, is it in the direct sunlight? Typically you don't want to paint in the direct sunlight, because the paint dries too fast, traps vapors that can cause bubbling and peeling. But how do you know if it's too hot or not? You could use a laser thermometer if you had one. I just feel the surface with my hand, and I'm 98 degrees. So if it feels hot to my hand, the surface is too hot to paint. Now, time of year, angle of the sun, a lot of factors that go into how much the sun is going to heat this surface up. This white surface is considerably cooler than this darker surface just to my hand. I'd have no problem painting this surface right now. This one feels a little warm. So those are kind of the considerations on the upper end of the temperature range as far as what's ideal for painting. But the best temperature to paint at, and if you're not in the direct sunlight, is the one you're most comfortable with, how you feel physically. I like it in the 70s. 60s and 70s. I like it cooler. 80s are too hot for me, and you get tired quicker. So the more comfortable you can be when you're painting, the more time you're going to take to do a good job and not be tempted to cut corners and get out of the sun.